People who are buying their first home and people who choose to build a home often have the greatest need for mortgage advice. So today I'm talking with Sarah Bloxham from Let's Talk Mortgages, and that's what we're doing. We're talking mortgages. Sarah is a registered financial advisor who specializes in mortgages and insurance across New Zealand, and she's super passionate about helping first-time buyers in particular. Now, like doing anything for the first time, you start off thinking you know enough to get started, only to find out eventually that you really had no idea all along. Sure, you could put in the time and do all the research yourself around getting mortgages, but in the end, when a mortgage advisor is there to help you along the way, why not? Why reinvent the wheel? So today we're talking about what's involved in getting ready to talk to the bank, how to navigate through some of the trickier aspects of gaining an approval of finance, and how different it is talking to the bank yourself versus going through an advisor. Now, this is a great episode for anyone looking to purchase for their first time, or even looking to finance the very first build project on their own. Please make sure that you've subscribed to the show to get all of the latest in this space, and in particular, check out the Practical Property Series playlist at the end of this episode for everything you need to know about property. Before we make a start as well, I'd like to acknowledge Hatch. Hatch makes it easier to invest in the US share market from New Zealand. Click on the notes to find a link where if you sign up to Hatch for the first time and deposit $100, they'll throw in another $20 for free. Pretty good deal. Let's make a start now on today's show. Hope you enjoy. Sarah Bloxham, your business is Let's Talk Mortgages. So let's talk mortgages today.
Awesome. Cool.
How does that sound?
Yeah, cool. Let's talk mortgages and insurance. There's a wee bit on the end.
Perfect. Oh, there we go. There's always a
thank you.
bonus.
Yeah.
So getting a mortgage means you're getting a house. Getting a house means that you're actually thinking about your future plan. So talk to me about how important the whole planning process is when you've decided to actually get a home.
Well, one of the things I like, and I post a lot all over Facebook and different Facebook pages about replying to people's comments, is for them to talk to a mortgage advisor. Lots of people talk to the bank, and that's okay, but New Zealand is now about the same number in Australia, people connecting with a mortgage advisor first, whereas before COVID, we used to be way lower. And the reason they should connect with a mortgage advisor is to have these conversations. Here's my numbers now, what does it look like, says the client, and then the mortgage advisor should be taking them through those numbers and sharing with what they could do now, but what they could do in the future in case they could do more by waiting a little bit or by tidying up things.
Got it. When it comes to doing the whole plan and kind of having that conversation and saying, hey, here's where you're at right now, this is what you're on track for, how often is there a misalignment in expectations? In other words, how often do people, for example, assume that they could borrow a lot because they feel like they could afford the repayments, versus the other way around where they're aiming pretty low but they could actually do quite a bit? Do you see that quite a bit, that mismatch?
It's probably about 50%, but there's a third one in there and it's quite lovely, where you just get the couples or singles who truly have no idea.
Yeah.
And so the couple that calls me up or emails or messages me, or single person, and said, hey, I'd like to look at my numbers, I've got absolutely no idea what I can do. Do you have time to talk to me? And I go, you're my perfect client. And they go, why is that? And I go, because you've got no expectations, but I want to teach you and educate you, and the stuff I'm going to teach you now in 5 years, 10 years, 15, your lingo, your conversation is going to change because you've learnt things you can carry moving forward. It's not just numbers for me and getting people in houses. It's when they ask you stuff or they start talking back to you, and I do go to some clients, can you hear your words have changed? And we end up laughing about it,
That's good. Because if you can, I guess, understand the language, understand what some of the rules are, then you can position yourself accordingly to actually get the best out of it. So even if someone was ready to buy a home in, say, 2 or 3 years, in the future, you'd still be willing to have a conversation with them just to help.
Yeah, because people come back, which is very interesting, and we do keep in touch. We've got a newsletter, but we keep in touch every, whatever they want. I always finish a Zoom meeting with saying, right, my words are next steps. Next steps, Mary and Bob, when should we connect? I think we should connect in 6 months. Or a client yesterday, shall we reconnect in a year? Because that's when his savings was going to be. And he said, I'd actually like to reconnect in June. I said, great. And then I followed up with an email so everybody knows where they stand when we're reconnecting and keeping in touch, etc.
That's good. You're talking.
See, communication is key.
It is actually, isn't it? So tell me, I guess the struggle changes depending on the season that we're in. So if interest rates were rising, the conversations that you have with people will probably be quite different. You'd be talking about risk management strategies around fixing the mortgages for longer versus shorter. If interest rates were going down, you'd have a similar conversation, but the other way around. If lending criteria or the rules with the bank tighten up, your conversation changes. So tell me, what are some of the struggles or what are some of the common, I guess, angst points that people have when they go through the process, not with you necessarily, but they've gone through the process with you, but then now it's time to actually start dealing with the bank. What's some of the kind of struggle points, I guess, if you like?
Well, sometimes it's that we've got to make sure that, and a lot of clients are doing new builds, is that nothing changes during that new build. So even though it's lovely to say, oh, we're having a baby, something like that, or that our finances have changed, please don't buy a car in the middle of a loan. So about 3 years ago, I had Sovereign call me up and go, Sarah, we've just withdrawn this finance for this person. And I went, what's happened? They says, oh, they've just taken out a $5,000 gem. And that was the fine line between the client losing the loan.
So they took out a personal loan while they were waiting for
a build in the middle of the build. Yeah.
Right.
And so I rang up the client straight away and I said, hey, what's happened? And he goes, oh, I've just bought a washing machine. And I was quite blunt. And I do say to people, hey, look, I'm really lovely, but we're doing finance. And I am going to be quite blunt sometimes. I said, a washing machine doesn't cost $5,000. He said, no, it costs $1,500, but they offered us $5,000. I said, okay, the choice is close it, get the house, or don't get the house. Within half an hour, I had a closure of a gem card, Visa, whatever it was, send it off to Sovereign, and they resurrected the...
And you bought a new washing machine that day as well, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Don't even go down that road, but yes.
That's a good point. So, because when you're entering into a contract to build and build a home, you've settled on the land, you've sorted out your builder, you've got the finance approved, hopefully, with the bank. But yeah, if you decide, actually, I'm going to buy a new car or buy a washing machine,
it changes it, yeah.
Or change my job and become a contractor. These are all very serious changes.
So we have talks. We have talks about that, about things staying the same. But I'll lead on from there and talk about new builds, if I may.
Yes, please.
Cool. So with new builds, what we've got at the moment in the whole of New Zealand market, and I've got clients right across the whole of New Zealand, even way before COVID, is that people finding it too hard to buy price properties. So then we head down the build route. So there's two kinds of builds: a turnkey build, where it's the deposit at the start and the mortgage at the end, and then we've got the one you just said, which was pay for the section and then a progress payments on the build. The bank's much more cautious on that because you've got to stay renting with your family or if you're a single person, but continue those costs, but the mortgage continues. And so we've got to be much more careful about that. With regards to interest rates going up and that sort of thing, when we look at any client, for now we're doing it on a test rate, so a much higher rate. So if you're at 90% right now, you could be paying, say, early threes, but we test it on anything from 5.9 to 6.45. So I always explain to clients when they go, what's a test rate? And I said, it's so in the future I don't get this lovely couple knocking on my door going, Sarah, we can't pay our loan, when I know that you can because we've tested it at that rate.
That's a good way of framing it. So you're seeing probably a lot more people shift from, hey, we can't buy a home, it's too expensive. We're pre-approved, we didn't realize how much things had gone up in price, so we're now going to consider looking at builds.
Yep.
So you're seeing a lot more people move into that space?
Yep. And then sometimes they can't find a build, and that leads on to expectations, but as well as the first home grants. So first home grants at the minute, and it sounds like the government might be doing something very soon and maybe rising the caps across New Zealand. So we're talking about first home buyers at the minute capped. Auckland prices are 600 existing, 650 new, but that will change in the future. But lots of my clients talk about buying it and I go, well, if you didn't actually look at that 5 or 10 grand, you can actually buy a 750 or 800 and just let that money go. And it's, if you get the free money, great, but otherwise really look at your true numbers, your true savings, and see if you can go higher. And then that comes down to expectations, thinking. Lots of people get a pre-approval and then go looking and they miss at auctions because they're looking at houses that aren't actually in their budget, and so they're missing. And so I do have honest conversations with people and go, okay, I can look up a house for you. I think that's going to go for above your price range. Okay, Sarah, we still want to go for it. I say, no worries at all, let's do the valuation, whatever. Or they go, okay, pull back from it. Yeah,
because there must be a lot of spinning wheels when people are going through either a home building or a home buying, or especially an auction property, where they are investing time and money, and if their expectations aren't right, it can be a really expensive procedure, right?
Yeah, and heartbreaking. So I do refer to it as you get yourself on this pedestal and you're dreaming, and I know I went through it with 2 houses before I bought my own house, where I dreamt at night, sleeping in the bedroom, the children upstairs, because it was a house with a 1 bedroom downstairs and 3 upstairs, dreaming in it, and then when it all fell down because that particular house had problems, or if you're missing at an auction, I said, you've got to pick yourselves up. If you're a couple, give each other a kiss, because one person will be emotional about it, and then get yourself back out there and keep looking.
Gotcha.
The other thing that's huge at the moment is FMO. Fear of missing out is so huge. And you sort of got to think, okay, I can't see prices going down at all because we don't have enough housing stock. But you still got to go, okay, are we truly ready for it?
Do you want to explain a little bit more on that?
Spending.
Right.
So that's where the bank's going to look at your spending. So we'll talk first home buyers rather than investors at the minute. So the biggest thing in New Zealand, every time when every client I Zoom, and I'll say, right, tell me, do you think you're a spender? And seriously, 95% of people answer within 1 or 2 seconds and go, yes. And I'm a very appreciative person, so I appreciate your honesty. How many takeaways do you have a week? Maybe 3 times. And so that might sound like, it's only $30 a pop, but they add up, they add up. And it's just a shame that you're not doing that. You're also leading by example to your children that this is what we do, rather than cooking all the time, takeaways on Friday, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so we have conversations about pulling that in and keeping your bank accounts tidy. You get more savings, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So that maybe we can buy more.
Yeah, got it. And it's all kind of tied. It's quite interesting, right? Because it's all kind of tied in. Hey, it's not really that good to eat out fast food too much.
Yep.
Like what you said around leading by example with your children. But also indirectly, it means that you're not going to look as attractive to a bank, which ultimately means that you're not going to be able to afford the type of home that you would really rather be in.
Yep.
Which gives you a better quality of life and a better kitchen to cook those meals that you really should be cooking. So it's all kind of congruent, isn't it?
Out to the barbecue.
Yeah.
So part of it is I do say to clients, look, we want you to buy your best first, rather than this will do, because then you'll stay there longer.
So tell me more about that, because that's a common thing that I see as well. But how do you handle that? So like quite often people view buying their first home, hey, it's a stepping stone, right?
Yep.
We're just going to buy it, live in it for a while, sell it when we have kids.
Yep.
But tell me, what's the problem with that plan?
Well, you've got costs at the minute in this market. Will go up, but sooner or later we're going to flatten out a little bit. But of course, if a couple's got 1 or 2 children, it might need to be in a school zone or something like that. Or if it's only a 2-bedroom and they're talking to you about having a family in the future. So we do talk about that a lot. Look, and I probably get away with it because I always say, hey, look, I'm a romantic financial advisor sometimes, and you just got to be open to those conversations. And being on Zoom, you're seeing people's faces and you're seeing people look at each other, and that is really nice. So it is. If you can buy the best home, even if it costs you a bit more, you'll never get approved by the bank or myself without it being able to fit your budget. Because in New Zealand, as you know, we've got the responsible lending code, meaning Mary and Bob, or Bob by himself, or Mary by himself, or Bob and Mary, are not going to get a loan given to them that they can't afford unless they change their circumstances themselves, e.g. more loans, etc. So buy your best first time. Going on for that, pre-approvals. Is it okay? Should we talk about that?
Perfect. Yes, please. Because there's auction properties.
Yep.
There's for sale by negotiation. There's a property that I've seen. It's got a set date of sale this Sunday, and I really got to make it happen.
Yep.
And then there's, hey, we know that we need to do this at some stage. We don't know whether we're ready right now. We don't know what the price range is. Can you just talk to us and help us, right?
Yeah.
Now, tell me, what do you prefer? What do you think is the most beneficial way to work, I guess? Do you like doing pre-approvals, or do you like having a deadline where you have to get things done by a certain time?
I think in this market, the majority of my clients have a pre-approval, which is awesome, because then they actually truly know what are we going out there looking for.
Actually, do you mind just breaking down what a pre-approval means?
Oh, cool,
just for
awesome.
Our listeners, yeah.
So pre-approval is, what's your wife's name?
Tanya.
Yeah. Okay. Darcy and Tanya, and have then we have a conversation, and you've already sent me your numbers, so in advance of the meeting I've looked and I've worked out numbers. You two, we share the screen, we talk all about it, and you go, and I go, so how do you feel about that, Sarah? We're pretty excited. That sounds like a good number, because I do say, is that price at your price point? You go, yeah, we think we could buy a house for that amount and where we want to be, etc. Okay, let's move forward in doing a pre-approval. I'm going to talk to you about how that works. So, and this is what I'm saying to the client. So we gather all your documents together and we get something called your story, how you became to where you are, where your money moves are in your bank accounts to help the assessor get it done easier, rather than the assessor going through heaps of pages trying to see where a couple's income is going, and then submit it off to the bank. When it's submitted to the bank, we also tell you it's submitted to the bank, so you don't think, has it gone to the bank? We only submit it to one bank. So that's a conversation. Yeah. So some people might go, well, why are you submitting it to more banks? Well, it's going to go on your credit check. But also in this current market, they're not going to be offering you anything different. 2, 3, 4, 17 years ago, they would have offered you very different rates, right? But now it's all very similar. And so we submit it to one bank, and then at the minute you're waiting about 10 days for an assessment back. And we want questions back from the assessor to ask questions, or if it comes back, I'll be emailing you, and I'm a big yay person. I say yay a lot. Yay, lovely couple. We've got your pre-approval. Here it is. Just to note, every pre-approval has the floating rate on it. So it's not the interest rate you're going to pay, because, of course, you're going to go out there looking. Yeah. So it's setting the pre-approval amount. So Darcy and Tanya might go, we really want to buy at 700. And I go, well, as per your numbers, we can actually see that you can afford 800. And then you might go, you would probably stick at 700, but you never know. So for me as your mortgage advisor, and I'm happy when I can see people are listening and learning, we would do the pre-approval for the higher amount, but you as a couple always choose what you spend up to. So you're under no influence from me to spend 800. I don't want a couple going, oh, Sarah's got us a pre-approval for 800. Do we have to spend it? No. And so you find you'll probably find that you will spend more than your expectations of the 700. And then we've got some people on the other side who come up the other way.
Yeah.
And then there's other conversations.
Because sorry, just to interrupt you there, but that would be quite beneficial, I would imagine, especially for those who maybe genuinely don't know what the price will be yet, right? Because they might think that for $700,000 it's going to give them what they want, but in reality, when they go out there and they hit the open home trails, it's more like $850.
Yep.
And also, they might think that the repayments are a lot higher than what they are because they may have used a conservative loan calculator.
Yep.
So by going through this process with you and telling you how much they can actually afford, the focus is on the repayment, the sustainability, rather than what the price of the property is. Because that price is kind of arbitrary.
Yep.
It doesn't mean much because it's translated via an interest rate into your bank account.
Yep.
Right. So.
But it's also then the expectations of what that 700 might buy, and then down the street they're going to think, oh, there's a 750. We can afford it because Sarah's told us. How much would those repayments be? So sometimes I've told them, look, go through this calculator, put in this interest rate. So all the banks work differently for first home buyers. You've got ANZ who charge a fee, and then you're low but not at 2.29. You're just sitting above that.
So we're talking about people who have less than 20%
yes,
deposit.
Thank you. Yes. Cool. So they might be sitting, let's say all these people are at 90%. So ASB, BNZ, Westpac, the other top three, charge an LEM, a low equity margin. So your interest rate will be higher. But over time you pay it down, or your value of your house goes up, and then you can apply to get that margin reduced. So that's the conversations we have. Hey, Darcy, what bank are you with? Well, Sarah, I'm with ABC Bank. Oh, cool. So I'll share with you how ABC Bank works.
And that's important, I guess, because if they feel like, hey, we've bought this property at a really good deal, and quite likely it'll be valued up next year, and maybe we have 20% deposit, then one option, the low equity premium versus the low equity margin, may be worse or better. And so that's the conversation that you're alluding to, right? You're with this bank already, and you might not necessarily get a better interest rate on the base rate, but because of the way they work this out differently, and because of the specific property that you've bought, maybe you should consider that. Yeah, so we do talk about that, but it's also different in that, it was really different every day, every week, every month from March till now, and it's slowing down a bit now, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Is that we have banks open and close all the time to new to bank, and NTB as we call it, new to bank. So sometimes there's posts going, why has my mortgage advisor only put me to my own bank? And that's because you won't fit anywhere else, or the other lenders aren't open to anyone else. They might be if it's a live deal, or they might not, and it changes every week, every month. And by live deal, you're talking about, hey, you've actually bought a property. Something. You know that on this date you're going to borrow this amount of money, right?
Yep.
So what you're basically saying is that new to bank customers, if you have less than 10% deposit, your own bank in certain seasons...
Less than 20%.
Less than 20%, thank you. So less than 20% deposit, your own bank in certain seasons may actually be the only option for you, because sometimes banks close off.
Yep, and then other times they open up. So we've got to really be watching who's reopening up, or keeping in touch with a certain bank. I'm waiting for the minute going, and I email or text them every week going, you open again for new bank, blah, 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 because I really want you to be, because I want it. Certain clients at certain places as well, and I always tell a client why. So one of the things that's happening in New Zealand in March, as you're fully aware, is the financial industry is changing. Now it's really interesting for me is that all clients should get full disclosure of fees, all that sort of stuff, but it's also about knowing, Sarah, why have you put me at ASB? Why have I gone there when my own bank is X? And so that's something I already talk about. I already say, why are you here? So there shouldn't be any client or prospect of mine that doesn't know something. And but it's a learning curve. If I have a half an hour Zoom with someone and they finish it, there's always more and more to learn, so they won't get everything in just a very quick conversation. And so there'll be another Zoom or conversation where people like yourself or me will talk and teach people along the way. And they may change banks. I've got a mortgage going in for a client now who's just changed for 2.5 months to a new bank, and in November. And that bank said, I will take clients for loans if they're with us for 3 months. So we'll just have to see how that goes in the application process.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like at the moment anyway, how do you find the banks are in terms of willingness to do business? Like, it feels like there's always money there. And it feels like the price is really low. Sometimes it might feel like the rules seem to be a bit arbitrary, and it's hard to actually understand why they're making certain judgment calls. But how do you feel the bank's rules or criteria are set right now? Do you feel happy with that? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's reasonable?
I think there's a couple of things going on. Sometimes it feels like it's what the assessor had for breakfast. It really does, and it's quite hard. I don't submit any applications for a decline because I don't want to waste. I don't want to waste my time. I've got an employer, Helena. I don't want to waste her time. Don't want to waste the client's time. I don't want to waste the bank's time. So if I get a decline come back, I'll go, why? What's happened? What's different to our calculations? What have we missed? And I don't mind. I've got a motto: learn something every day. Yeah. So if we've missed something, tell me, cool, because then
That's
I
right.
can learn.
That's right.
But then sometimes it's really cool to challenge the assessor, Lena, and they've missed something, and then you can turn it around and boom, you're back on. And it does make me go, yay,
That's right.
I've saved that one. Sometimes we have put an application in and it might get reduced slightly, so we've just got to advise the client why.
Yeah.
And
I guess people don't really understand that. It's actually, it's all about relationships, ultimately.
Yes.
You can opt in or opt out of that argument, but for the most part, if you're going to be successful in this business as a mortgage advisor, you need to learn how to work with this partner, the bank.
Yes. Yeah, and the assessors.
And you can't aggravate them, not because they are, sensitive and they'll cry, not for that reason, but you get way more done when you're in agreement. You
and
catch
having
more
a good
bees with honey.
conversation and appreciative as well. Sometimes, like 9:30 last night, I was messaging. There was an email beeped in that I saw on my phone. I replied. 6:30 this morning, there's an assessor working on a deal of mine. I'm replying back because he was waiting for a question.
Amazing, eh?
It is, and
some banks you can tell like they're going well.
They are trying so hard to catch up because
and
so that's the thing with teaching lovely clients that we have got a long wait, but this is what they're doing for us, and they're looking after, and the whole market's so mental, and that's that reason going back to why we need a pre-approval.
Yes.
So if we get the pre-approval back to you and Tanya for so that you can go looking, then when we want to buy a house, it's much quicker and the finance condition is shorter rather than the 10 to 15 days you might have to put on something for a price by negotiation house or price property, where a vendor's just going to go, nah, not taking my house off the market for 15 days waiting for you.
Yes. Okay, so tell me how say Tanya and I could improve our odds in getting the house, so getting that vendor to say yes, we're willing to take that. How can we improve? So we have a pre-approval, but it's conditional on maybe a valuation report.
Yep.
How could we improve our odds and actually?
So we've got to pre-approve you for 800, and you found a house that's for sale for 750, and you sign a sales and purchase agreement for say 725. The vendor signs at 775. You all agree for 750, and you'd put down between 5 and 7 days for finance because we have to. If you're at 90%, we need a valuation. So, and they're aware of that, and I always make sure that you're telling the real estate agent, hey, look, if we can get it done quicker, then we're going to pull the unconditional date earlier. I also email the solicitor and introduce myself and say, hey, I'm the solicitor for Darcy and Tanya. So this is what we're doing. I know they've got and reattach the sales and purchase agreement so they know exactly who we're talking about because they're very busy. And then say, just to be aware, we've ordered the valuation today. We are really trying hard to pull this earlier so that Darcy and Tanya don't get pipped at the post by someone else instigating the escape clause.
That's good. That's good. So the difference between a pre-approval and an unconditional approval is what?
You could get an unconditional approval if you and Tanya already had 20% deposit and just sent me this the sales and purchase agreement blank to me to send to the lender. The lender approved it, and they use very specific terminology, which is that nothing can be changed in that agreement. And then you could put unconditional on finance if you didn't need evaluation.
Yes.
And if you'd already got your own building report done, boom, then that would be a winner.
Gotcha.
And also, of course, that's how it's got to be for auctions. It has to be unconditional.
Thank you, because that was my next thing that I want to talk to you about. You've got an opinion on auctions, and I guess that kind of ties into what I assume, because it sounds like you're quite experienced with dealing with home buyers who have less than 20% deposit. You're quite aware of that, and you're also aware that it gets quite difficult if people with less than 20% deposit are going to an auction property.
Yep.
So tell me, what's your view on auctions? Do you think that they are good for purchasers? Bad? What are some of the challenges that you have?
Well, obviously Auckland is 90% auctions, which is really hard, especially it's pretty big on the North Shore, pretty big over there. And so that's just calming is probably the wrong word, but trying to set expectations really realistic of, okay, look, I always say to a person, I wish you really good luck. I put them in my phone. I'm waiting for a text to see if they got it or not, etc. But so a house has been announced on Monday that it's going to have its first open home on Saturday. You'll know that you're keen on the house. So you've already sent me an auction pack from the real estate agent, and because your goal is to go into it and try and get unconditional and pull that auction forward is the only way really at the minute people are really getting it. But if you have to wait, and that's okay, and they don't pull it forward and you go to the auction, then obviously you're just going to be careful how you're bidding and not bid too early. And just watch the floor. I have some clients who go, one recently that they were just going to do it on the phone. I said, look, if there's any way you can get time off work and be real there, it's going to be much better in person than on the phone.
Yes.
Because you can see the room, etc. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You need to see that room, eh?
Yeah, I know, and I think
and watch some auctions other times. Yeah, exactly. Saying the same thing.
It's kind of fun as well. Like if you have nothing to do and you don't have kids, or you've got a babysitter, go to an auction.
Go to something, see how they work. Where do people sit? Where are they looking? And just know that a real estate agent's job is to get the best price for the vendor. So if it's not sold, and you're the last bidder, they'll take you into a room and they're very good at getting you to where you want to be.
Correct.
But we always beforehand clarify exactly what you're allowed to bid up to and have big conversations about, because it might be that you go, well, Sarah, the valuation coming at 750. But I know if it goes to 770 that I can get 20 grand off my mate Bob as a gift, or Tanya's mum, or my blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I go, cool, that's fine. You can do that. And we really, truly make sure there is no misconception about what you can and can't do.
And going back to expectations, I know that the biggest issue that I guess I have when I know that clients of mine are going to an auction is I know that they're confronting someone who is an expert negotiator.
Yeah.
And real estate agents are
that's a job.
They're unbelievably good at what they do, and it starts very early on with the first question that you ask when you go to an auction property, which is, hey, what's going to sell for?
Yeah.
That's your very first encounter of what it's like to be dealing with somebody who's good at negotiation on the other end, because they're going to say a number which is designed to encourage you to do further investigation and is designed to initiate emotional buy-in, right?
Yep.
So do you find that as well? That's probably one of the biggest complaints you hear from your home buyers with auctions, is that they were almost led to believe that it was going to sell for a lot less than what it actually did.
What I do for clients as well is I go, hey, look, send me a trade me list of like 3 properties. I won't dilly-dally and put fluff in the email. I'll just put numbers and stuff under it. But know that when I look it up on CoreLogic or Velocity, it doesn't know what the inside of the house has been looked after or done up, etc. And really get to know a suburb. Don't give yourself the whole of Auckland. If you're going to look on the North Shore, look on the North Shore, but get down to suburbs. If you're looking in Christchurch, pick suburbs, not the whole city. And then when you walk in and out of houses, you'll truly know what your extra 50 or 100 is getting you, right?
Totally. You will know.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing we should add to this conversation is the deposit at an auction is negotiable. You don't have to put 10% down.
Yes.
But it has to be agreed by the vendor. So for a deposit, it needs to be money that's available to you. So be careful when you're going to bid at an auction, and we've got you unconditional, but that the deposit is either cash available or the KiwiSaver's already withdrawn by your solicitor, but it doesn't have to be 10% of the auction. I'll give you an example. So we've got you bidding at that 750 house, and you know you've got 75,000 deposit, but 40 might be in KiwiSaver, so you've got 30 cash or 3540. So that can be agreed up front, and you put it forward to the agent who's looking after you, but it has to be signed off by the vendor beforehand.
And for most situations like that, as long as that initial deposit covers the real estate commission.
Oh my God, you're so me too. We think the same. I'll go back to talking about new builds.
Yes, please. Yes.
One of the things I talk to clients about is knowing what you're truly buying in a new build, because when you look through show homes, they're all souped up. So what I mean is when you walk through, you're going to see an upgraded kitchen, an upgraded bathroom, better carpet than you might get, all that sort of thing. So really truly understand when you're buying a new build, what am I getting? Or maybe the question is, what is excluded from this contract?
Good point.
So most of the time, a letterbox, a clothesline, landscaping, may or may not, but they'd never put curtains. So you've got to set aside money for curtains later. But know that the kitchen bench you're seeing that's a nice chunky sexy kitchen bench is probably not what you're getting. You might be getting the little tiny one, and maybe at the time get that changed if you do want it, etc. But make sure you know what taps, what bath, what kitchen, what dishwasher, everything you know is what you truly want, because it's quite exciting getting a new build.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess, getting a new car, right? You're going to be shown the model, which is the top of the line model, and you might not fully appreciate that you've got the...
So Kiwi Builds are an example.
Okay.
There's so many of them coming out. I'm getting a lot of people contacting me about Kiwi Builds at the moment. And what I did was I rang the guy, his name I've forgotten at the moment, it's Sean or Shane something, lovely guy at Kiwi Build for the Ormiston ones in Auckland. And I said to him, look, what's the process? I'm getting lots of people asking me. And so for those, people are putting their names down for them. I'm getting some people putting their name down just for one, other people putting their name down for the whole lot. And he goes, they're drawn on a date. People get notified. It's 5 days due diligence and then 20 days for finance. I said, what happens after that? He goes, well, some people can't get finance. And so then those are re-offered out to people who put their names forward for the ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you seeing a lot of people get in using these schemes?
I'm seeing both, actually. So end of last year, I had 2 clients call me. One guy had all the money, could have made it work, and didn't get picked. And his voice was so disappointed. Yeah. And then I had another client call me who'd already rung me about their numbers. Their numbers didn't work at all. Yeah. And they got one in the ballot.
So it's purely a lottery.
Oh, yeah. And I think what is a sad there is if all clients had to be pre-approved to prove they had it, then it would actually, the people who got picked out would really be excited because they
Makes
know.
a lot more sense.
Yeah, and it also gives the client...
so with Kiwi Builder, you don't actually have to prove that you are pre-approved before you enter the ballot?
No. Not this one anyway, not the current ones that are on at the minute. And obviously that changes all the time, so don't hold me to that for other ones. Yeah.
Interesting.
But they're open to conversations and stuff about it, and it is really interesting. And those houses will grow in value quite a lot.
Yes.
But because of course you can use the first home grant. But once again, people shouldn't get despondent if they don't go out there. They've just got to get stuck in and look around and find something else.
Yes. And it comes down to, I guess, going right back to the start of this conversation, how important it is to have a plan.
Yep.
Because to have a plan implies that you have a reason or you have some sort of goal or objective that you're trying to achieve. And owning a home is quite important.
Yeah, you can get, as you get older and older, you look back and you'll always say, I wish I'd bought earlier. My youngest client ever, we've just submitted a pre-approval for him this week, 18.
Wow.
I know. See, once again, I've got shivers.
Man.
Coolest guy. So before he walked into the office, I was thinking, okay, what am I going to get? So switched on. Really talked the lingo, knew lots of stuff. Yeah. And then we got to, and he's actually buying an investment property, because he's been saving some money and he's got a small gift from family to do it.
Wow.
And he's staying living at home, as most people do at the 18. Otherwise they're off to uni.
Yeah.
And really for me, not at 18, to be very inspired by someone like this, because he's only going to do cool stuff. So I've introduced him to an accountant and I said, you need to talk to an accountant because you need to buy that right in the beginning, etc. But age is not an issue. My oldest clients, when I got into their first home, were 54 and 57, and they moved home for a year to live with the 80-year-old mother to save more money, and now they're 2 years into their loan and we've just got their LEM, low equity margin, totally removed off their home. So in 2 years it's gone from 90% to 80%, not from them paying down but the value of the house growing as well. So,
that's phenomenal, isn't it?
It is. And so, I'm
just thinking about that young guy, right? Like, how awesome is that? Like, if you can go back to when you were 18, when I was 18, if we bought a home back then.
Yeah, imagine our assets.
Do you think that a lot of first home buyers, by default, if they cannot get a home for themselves to live in, if they're able to, will they opt for buying an investment property somewhere else?
Yeah, they could do. So we'll talk about a couple of funny things there. So I've got 2 children, 16 and 18, and my daughter's off to uni soon at 18. And we've always talked finance because they get me talking, hear me talking to clients and ask questions, and I'll say, oh, guess what happened today, blah, blah. So both of them, the story of with my son regards is that when he was 12, he came to me. I live in Auckland, and he said to me, Mum, I've got something to tell you. I go, oh no, what's that? Because it sounds like he's done something wrong. He goes, just to tell you, age 12, I won't be buying in Auckland. Well, and really hard not to laugh.
It broke your heart, didn't it?
Oh my God. But it was like, seriously. And he goes, but it's okay, Mum, I'll come and visit you. Wow, bless him. So then at Christmas time, he's in the car now, 16, with a mate. They're going to basketball. And he goes, hey, Mum, you know how I'm buying a house? Awesome.
He remembers,
16.
Well done.
He goes, you know how I'm buying a house? I go, yes, Dayton. He goes, well, I've decided I'm going to get 2 flatmates in with me, and I'm going to get them both paying rent, and that'll help me pay down the loan. Is that a good idea, Mum? And I'm just thinking, this is awesome.
16 years old.
You're 16, and this mate in the back seat sort of going, we're like 16. Then my daughter's thinking the same thing. She's going, Mum, I need to buy as soon as possible. I hope it's within 10 years. I said, oh, Devon, you'll definitely be buying earlier than that, because you don't want people waiting that long. As soon as they can get a house, then they need to get the flatmates in, even if they don't want flatmates, to help them pay it down. A flatmate at $250 a week is $10,000 a year to help pay it down. And just set some rules in the flat about how it works and how you take care of each other, all that sort of thing. So, and then we've got people buying together. Yeah. So that's really harder with the lenders. Some of them will do it equally. Others, banks want them servicing each part individually and showing they can.
Right.
So what's just happened? I had a client who was...
So just to pause you there. So when you say buying a home together, so this could be a group of friends that just team up.
Yep.
They might be drawing down on the KiwiSaver. They might have a gift from mum and dad, but they're kind of forming like a little mini syndicate, whether it's 2 people or 4 people, right?
Yep. But I talk to lots of people about this, because some single people might be on 60K and can't buy anything, but if they got a friend, and I say, look, think of a brother, a cousin, someone your age who's also going to get 30 years, then it's much easier to present it to the lender. A client that I've just got was settling on Monday just past the 18th, and it's now delayed 3 weeks because of KiwiSaver withdrawal, unfortunately, but it's okay, is buying with his mum. Right. The cool story. He's 24, she's 54, lovely family, and just make your heart sing because you know you're making a difference. They're already renting the house they're going to buy. Right. But the age difference is an issue because, of course, mum at 54 is not going to work for 30 years. So what we had to do was portion it. It's still portioned 50-50, but look how she would service it because she'll have KiwiSaver coming out. Her husband's already retired. How a 24-year-old would be able to service his piece with different numbers because he had a student loan and boy, it was tight, but we did it.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well
and
done.
I said to the client, you know that was a tough one, eh? And he goes, I think you might have had to blah, blah. And I said, yes, we did.
There is a lot of stories like that, right, where sometimes you just look at it and go, I can't believe that actually worked. It's not because you know, I can't believe they actually bought that line. It's actually a true story. You know, like it
takes time.
It just takes time to get everything pitched in a way and a little bit of negotiation. But that's quite a unique situation where you've got an older parent and a younger. So do you often find that there's a solution for everyone, or do you find that it might take you one or two banks before you find a lender who actually agrees with your thesis around this?
Normally I'd find that out first before I submit it.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but that's just going to be such a cool story. And this young guy's going, Sarah, I'm going to refer you everywhere. And that's your top client because they do. But he also knew how much work I put into it. I had to come to work, not looking at any clients, not turning my laptop, and just go, right, Sarah, how can we make this work? And really think. Nice. But quite a few years ago, we'll lead on to parents in the mix.
Yes, please. Yes.
Quite a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had a young lady want to do a loan, and she rings me up. She goes, right, Sarah, I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. And I'm going to get 50K off Dad. I went, okay, that's cool. She goes, could you ring Dad? And I went, it's not my place to ring Dad. Somehow, I don't know how, but I ended up ringing Dad.
Right.
And I say, hey, it's Sarah here. I'm not supposed to be ringing you, but for some reason I am. And he went, oh, okay, cool. I said, so-and-so said that you're going to be gifting them 50. And he went, oh, I thought it was 30. So that was interesting. And then I said, okay, well, whatever the amount is, the question I want to ask you is, may I ask how old you are? And he said, oh, I'm 64. I said, okay. If you give so-and-so this daughter, will you still be able to retire? And he said, no. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I think I've got a kind heart where I just couldn't do that to somebody. So I said, oh, look, thanks for your time. I sent them both the joint email and I said, hey, look, this is how it is. If Dad gives you daughter the money, he won't be able to retire because I just wanted to check he could still have coffees out, go away for weekends and do what we all deserve, right? And in the end, the young lady emailed me and said, hey, I've decided not to do the money off Dad. I'm going to move forward with something else. And I was really pleased that I'd actually put forward the different side of it. You sort of got this fine line between an advisor, but I am offering my financial advice. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
And then in the end, it's up to the father and daughter.
Right.
If the dad still wants to gift it, good on your dad.
Yeah, that's right.
But if he doesn't, etc.
Yeah.
My advice for lots of parents now is to gift the money and stay separate. So let's there's sort of two things that are happening at the moment: guarantoring a loan where the houses are joined together, or say Darcy and Tanya have an 18-year-old who's keen to get into a house, and they decide to gift Johnny 50 grand or Mary 50 grand, then it's very separate, and it just has to be a gifting certificate, payable, and signed that it is a gift and non-repayable, etc. And there are different variations which I won't go into because I'm not a solicitor, that you can have your name, etc. on different parts, but it's a bit complicated for here.
Yeah. So gift is simple. Co-purchasing or a guarantor, that's when things get a little bit interesting because the bank is under an obligation to actually consider the parent's ability to repay that loan if things went belly up.
Or the other way. So I had one person, I didn't end up getting a loan a couple of years ago because he went under for guarantoring his parents with it, and the parents went down. And so it can happen both ways. If you think about it, what happens if a parent loses a job or gets ill and doesn't have personal insurance or something?
Correct.
Then it could take down the other way around. So
these things happen, and this is probably like a real common theme that you must see all the time, where when people want things, sometimes they'll engineer their world to get the thing that they want, rather than the other way around, let their circumstances speak to them and say, hey, this is the most appropriate move. In other words, don't do whatever it takes to get the job done. Actually look at the facts.
Yep.
Hey, if you're going to put your parents in a really awkward position here,
step away
because it's not going to work out well for anybody in the end.
Exactly.
Just for you to try to get what you want today.
Yep.
So that's where I guess it really touches on the importance of advice.
Yep.
And before we finish up, I want to make sure that we're really clear on this, because it's not about playing a game and winning the game being how can I get a mortgage from the bank to buy the property that I really want. It's not about that. It's about financial advice, and financial advice goes deep. It's not just about numbers. So how much of what you do in terms of all the talking that you must do with clients and all the
Yeah.
emails and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
how much of that would you actually consider advice
Yep.
versus what people actually think you're doing? Because they probably think that you're just crunching numbers and doing analysis, but really it's so much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm getting the more and more Zooms I do, and the more people know in advance what we're doing. At the end of the meeting, we really clarify what we've talked about, and I think that more and more people, because they see your self-experience, my self-experience, they're actually knowing, hey, this is really good, because I do it all for free. I don't charge a fee. I have a Zoom, and there's other advisors that charge a fee, and that's fine for them. Every advisor business is different. That's when they come back. They'll come back 3 months, 6 months. I'll put a reconnection in, and they might come back early. But it is financial advice, all of it. And once again, talking earlier about disclosure, that's where always I say, hey, look, just to let you know, I'm doing this. We're going to work out your numbers, but they will change, and it is a conversation until we do an application and the bank assesses you.
Yes.
That's the big thing. But also at the bottom of every email and verbally, I'm saying to them, hey, look, just to let you know, paid by the lenders and insurance companies, etc. No cost to you, unless, of course, we're going to a non-bank for a reason.
Good on you.
Yeah. Is that what you meant?
That's perfect. Marriage, celebrant, mortgage. We haven't talked about insurance yet. So this is a really unsexy topic for some, but I actually think is super interesting.
Yeah. That means you've got insurance.
That's right. I smoke my own crack. Trust me. So if you were sitting in front of somebody, let's say you got them married, you got the mortgage, you got them in the first home, you followed them through, how important is it that they actually keep on going and they have the vegetables, not just the meat and the dessert, but they actually have the vegetables as well? They take out the insurance. How important is that?
It is important, but I do it in a different order. So I tend to have a lot of my pre-approval people already with the insurance. So the life, the income cover, the medical, etc., out there looking.
Good.
Because if something were to happen, and I won't say your name because that'd be bad luck. So we've got Bob and Bob out there looking, lovely couple out there looking, and we've got their pre-approval, and something happens to one of them for an illness or something, then they've still income cover can kick in, and they can still keep looking because they're being paid.
Because the worst case scenario is, hey, we've just committed our 2 bobs worth of deposit to buy this property. We're waiting for settlement to happen.
Yeah, something happens, and that has happened to people. Either one's passed or people have got ill and couldn't work to finish. You know, or then you do the next step. So we've got the client, the house, time's ticking on. We know it takes 2 people at $60,000 to both pay the $500,000 mortgage. One goes off. You truly don't want to be losing that house. I know.
It's the worst. I was just talking to Tanya yesterday about a work story. I have to be careful about the work stories I tell because I have to scrub the details quite a bit. Long story short, pretty much identical what you were saying. Dual incomes. One of them will probably soon pass away, unfortunately.
Yeah, bless.
And she was the primary income earner.
Yep.
So the person who wasn't earning very much, 5 kids.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
Have they got insurance?
Yeah.
Oh, phew.
Through me.
Yeah, well done.
That's how I know about the story.
Tick.
But still, it's never enough insurance, right?
That's the other thing. When people go, well, how much should I have? Well, there's that old age saying the person who's left behind is you never say you've got too much insurance.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the common thing. Like people when they want to review their insurance, we're worried we're paying too much for too much insurance. Very unlikely. It's possible. Yeah. But very unlikely, especially when it comes to life insurance, because you haven't actually factored in today's present value of their future cash flow.
Yep. And the children, it's education or student, just where you want to see your children.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of clearing the house loan and leaving the wife or the husband behind to look after the children. They need money ongoing to get them.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a selfish thing, I guess, when you're involved with insurance, it forces you to see the full circle of what sometimes happens. Because if you were just doing, say, a mortgage for one of your clients, you're at a very exciting stage in their life, everything's positive, and they're making a start, right?
Yep.
And maybe you see them again when they make another move.
Yep.
But when you do the insurance piece, you're actually getting both sides of what actually happens, because most people focus either on the dramatic accident, or they focus on amazing returns from some investment decision. But what they don't focus on is the statistical probability that you're far more likely to die from cancer than you are from dying on the road.
Yep. Or get an illness and not be able to work. Correct. Is really high. So in my business, I call it it's your plan B. Yeah. And it's really important that you have that plan B. And so I think my words are, you need a plan B because it's what happens if ...
Correct.
And so about 2 years ago, I went to the doctors for an ear check or something, and the nurse said to me, what do you do? And I said, well, I do mortgages and insurance. She said, I've always thought about having insurance, but what would happen if I got to 65 and haven't used it? I went, wow, that'd be cool. And she goes, why? I said, you haven't claimed on it, but it's been your plan B if it's a rainy day and the world's got bad, etc. You got it to cover you. And I always talk about if my own insurance, and I'll show people my own insurance, and also about getting a will as part of it. You know, so I do talk about the whole thing: the mortgages, life, income cover, medical, having a will and referring them to a solicitor and KiwiSaver. All is the whole picture.
People are pretty open to that.
Yeah. And it is, I think it's that I get away with it because I'm not their auntie or their mother, but I want them to know, if you get this now, it's the best time, but also be aware it will go up in cost every year. It's not going to, you can make some products just stay the same, but income cover is going to go up every year, and that's a good thing, because as that value goes up, but it's going up for cost, and just be aware of it. And a good advisor will review your insurance every year. You've got to reply to the emails, which sometimes even my clients don't, and you're chasing them going, come on, I need to chat to you. I want to make sure you're okay. What's changed in your world?
That's good.
You know,
let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk. Exactly.
That's good. It's such a good name for you. Well, all done. Now, if people want to reach you, Sarah, like, where's the best place to connect with you? I know that you put a lot of video content out there on social media. So where's the best place to follow you and connect with you?
So on Facebook, I'm Let's Talk Mortgages NZ. I do post once a week. I would go a bit quiet in winter if it's yucky weather. But you're always welcome to message me on there, or message me direct under my name, Sarah Bloxham. You'll find me anywhere. And yes, I get most of my stuff actually coming through Facebook Messenger.
Fantastic.
And, thank you. And I've got a website as well, so check that out. It's just called Let's Talk Mortgages. .co.nz.
Well done.
Thanks. And thanks for having me on your podcast.
No worries. Really appreciate it.
Hasn't that conversation flowed easy?
It was very easy. Let's Talk Mortgages. We've just done it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Cheers.
Awesome.